I'm Jen West, professional rebel of delight.
And I'm Dave Wiesdock, sage of creative scaffolding.
And this is Shadowcasting. Welcome back, audience. We're having another day of play mindset. And this week we are exploring Dave's favorite thing, his very favorite, curiosity. So if you remember, play mindset is a practice that shines a light on actions that support you. And this idea stems from two cycles that we go through. We are either in a survival cycle or we are in a fulfillment cycle. And most of us are naturally more prone to the survival cycle. This is one that keeps us alive. It keeps us safe. And its entire goal is to find what's comfortable and what's already known for us. So in the survival cycle, we are often on autopilot and we tend to react to our fear, and blame is where we go when things aren't going right for us. And we cycle around and we're just in, if we hit discomfort, it causes anxiety and we stay stuck in a pattern. And what play mindset helps us do is move out of the survival cycle into what I call the fulfillment cycle. And this cycle is all about being expansive and growing and creating more of a spiral instead of a circle that just keeps happening, the same pattern over and over. So in fulfillment, we are more present, we're active, we're accepting, and we have more compassion for those around us. We take responsibility and create more in our lives. And it makes life more interesting, more dynamic, and alive. And these two cycles also came from the idea of James Carse's work, Finite and Infinite Games. And the coolest thing about his work is it's talking about games. And that's kind of where the idea of play came from. So in finite games, they're the ones we know. They're the games that have rules and they have a start time and an end time and a winner and a loser. And you have a certain amount of players with very specific rules. But life doesn't really have boundaries. It doesn't have those kind of strict rules around it. Life is more of an infinite game. And infinite games are games that we play where the players come and go. And the boundaries aren't hard set. They're kind of flexible and malleable. And we can just keep going and growing. And so people come in and people go out and the rules aren't fixed. And the whole point of the game is to keep playing. So if you think about kids playing house or when you're building with Legos, you're just building, you're just creating designs. There's no end. It's just whoever comes in, grabs Legos, and you just build stuff. So we're exploring that. We do more of a deep dive. And I highly recommend you go back and listen to earlier podcasts, especially our intro podcast that tells all of this about play mindset.
Right. And so far, we've talked about 5 tools or qualities that we work through to move from the survival to the fulfillment cycle. And the idea behind this is that I think we called it more of like a web, right? Because you can be, maybe in your relationship, you're in the non-judgment part of your survival fulfillment cycle, but at work, you're in the acceptance part. And the idea is that in different areas of your life, you might be in different spots, but they all help you navigate your way through it so that you can move to that more fulfilled state.
Right. And it is the whole set of tools that we have move us out of a survival state into its corresponding fulfillment state. And so, like I said, today we are going from being closed off to possibility through the tool of curiosity. And if we quickly recap, the tools that we've already gone through that we have podcasts on are we started with discomfort as the tool. And this is the one where we get into our body sensations and we recognize the mental noise and where we are either in anxiety or we move into excitement. And then the next tool we looked at was awareness, getting back into the moment and seeing reality as it is. So we're moving from autopilot to presence. And then the next tool is non judgment. We're stepping away from that binary of this, that, right, wrong, good, bad, so that we can get more clarity on the situation we're in. And it moves us out of fear and into compassion. And then the next tool was acceptance. And this tool makes peace with what is. We can't change what's happening right this second. So we have to see what it is and accept it. This moves us out of blame and into balance. And then 2 weeks ago, we hit on the tool of personal responsibility. This is owning your life and actions, taking your life into your own hands. And this moves us out of the victim state and into our own power. And this has been a fun journey so far. I hope the audience has been enjoying it. I know Dave and I have been enjoying it tremendously. And if I'm not mistaken, Dave, I think you've been waiting for this one because we're finally hitting it here.
Yeah, totally. I have been waiting for this one since we've started this series. This is my number one value is curiosity. This is my lighthouse in my own life, and it is my beacon for how I navigate. So I am so excited to share with our audience the journey of curiosity from being closed off into possibility. And not only the mental process behind that, because curiosity often implies that sort of mental construct. There's also physical attributes to this and spiritual and emotional. And when you really begin to dive into curiosity and embody it in all these facets of your life, it really becomes a tool that I believe for me is the cornerstone of how I move from survival to fulfillment. Curiosity is often what cues me in to, okay, wait a minute, pause. Where am I actually at with this? And is that where I want to be? Sometimes it is. Sometimes I am in my fulfillment cycle, and recognizing that for myself is equally important. But curiosity gives me the ability to step into that awareness and the other tools.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's dive in, audience. We'll start off with, of course, our survival cycle, and that's being closed off. It can be the emotional closed off where you don't share your emotions or you're distant. But in this respect, we're talking about more of a mindset completely. So when we think about being closed off, we think about already having our ideas set and our identity really hard formed. Like we are this thing. And yeah, it's really in its own pattern. This is who I am. This is what I believe. This is what right and wrong is. And there's nothing that you can say to make me change that.
And fixed mindset is interesting with the reality that we're not always conscious of that. I've noticed in my own survival cycles that the fixed mindset often appears when there is something being challenged external to myself. And I rely on my abilities, my intelligence, who I am as a person in order to navigate that. And what happens when we're closed off is we miss the opportunities there to handle that challenge in different ways. And so what happens is we become resistant to what's happening outside of us, this new information coming in, and we cling to these values and beliefs and patterns that we've acquired over the years in order to ignore or discount what we're hearing outside of ourselves. When we're exposed to challenging or new information, I think we learned this in school really is you're taught a framework, and then you're given exercises, challenges, problems, questions to use against that framework. And so from a really early age, we're taught you're given a challenge, use the framework that you've been given in order to handle it. And the problem is that it creates a limitation in our ability to navigate those issues because not every problem we face is going to be able to be handled by the framework we've already received.
Yeah. I think school is teaching us certain tools like how to write and how to comprehend what you read in a good way, how to do math problems, the geography of things. So often there's a right and wrong answer as you go off through school, especially at the beginning through first through sixth grade. You're learning how to do the right way so people can communicate with you, or you can do math, or you can move through the world. But it seems like those structures don't change into problem solving later in life, and we don't learn those skills aren't added on. It's still a right and wrong all the way through high school, and sometimes through college you're still learning the right way, and you get graded on the right way instead of how well you adapt or how well you problem solve or how well you research something and find out if something's true or not. Those skills aren't implied.
I was just going to add, yes, it's almost like we're rewarded for the answer rather than the process.
Yes. And so that's what we have to learn now. Now we live in a world where we look for the right answer. And we also go from our history and our story. What worked for me? What was the right answer in the past? What is the pattern that works? And that closes us off. It makes our world smaller and tighter and more myopic.
College word of the podcast, myopic. Oh,
As I was saying it, I'm like, am I using it right? Yeah, I'm using it.
oh, chef's kiss. And instinctively, well, no, not instinctively, learnedly, we become afraid of being wrong because we learned through this process that by being right, or let me rephrase, we learned through this process that being right is the right thing to do. It's just this factual line in the sand. This is the right way to do something. And so what happens is curiosity turns off in fear of or in preference of being correct. And so you move through life rather than what works for me, what's true for me, what's possible here. You move through the lens of what's the right answer. And a lot of times, at least in my coaching experience, is that prevents you from finding the quote unquote right answer because you're operating off of an outdated framework.
Yeah. And this also just occurred to me. This is the only tool that we've come across so far in our survival cycle that wasn't more of a natural instinct, like blame and fear and anxiety. These are natural to us. We've actually, with curiosity, trained ourselves out of it. We've created in our survival cycle something that's not natural to us. Because as children, we're very curious. We're always asking the questions. We want to explore things in a new, vibrant way. But our culture has made that something that isn't something that we want. And so now we have to relearn possibility. We have to relearn what we had as children. So this time, the survival cycle is self created. We did this to ourselves.
And not intentionally, right? It's one of those learned behaviors in order to survive. And that's why it's in the survival cycle. This is how we lived.
Yeah, it's social survival.
Yeah. Yeah. And what happens is as we create a habit around being closed off, that turns into cognitive biases. It becomes this almost like a confirmation bias, right? Because now you have not only a framework, you have what you think is the right answer. And so you go out and look to confirm that right answer. And if you're stuck in survival, you might mistake that as following gut and instinct, when in reality, it's just your mind's way of trying to rationalize around what you believe is correct, true, and right. And all of that is very closed off energy. It's selective. It reminds me of like in psychology, I learned about the Barnum effect. It's the idea that when really it's about things like astrology and what they call pseudosciences, or maybe I'll call them softer sciences. But it's the idea that when you read something about a generic statement about yourself, you are able to project yourself into that statement because just a couple words generate, and then your story carries the rest of the meaning. It might not even be what it says right there on the paper, but you create a selective understanding because you are able to meld it with the structure, your internal framework. And what happens is it creates this inconsistent behavior, and you start to put the blinders on. This is how I am. This is who I am, and I can't change it. And you almost stake a flag in it, like, like, this is who I am. And what ends up happening, and one of the things that we've talked about on this podcast, is you see this a lot in personality tools. I am an ENTJ and therefore I act this way. Well, no, it's just a tool. It's an insight into your behavior. And it's not a,
Not even into your behavior, just into the way your brain works. The
yeah,
way that you choose to behave from it, that's on you. You can change the behavior. It's just knowing what your flow state is and what's helpful and what's hard for you, blind spots. It's just giving you tools to play with.
well, I was thinking of more along the lines of how people use it as a limitation, right?
Right.
So a great example is my MBTI is an ENTJ. Many ENTJs believe they have to be the CEO, the leader, the project manager. And so that's their limitation. They only see their career through that selective lens. And instead of it being a tool into the self, it becomes an external projection on how to present themselves into the world. And that's closed off. That's not curiosity.
All
That's
right.
oh,
Yeah. And you will see it where ENTJs will see somebody else who doesn't quite fit that mold, that map of what it's supposed to be, and be like, you're not an INTJ. You're just not. And that's not how it works. It's not the behaviors. And so, yeah, the closed off energy of this is the way. And that um, confirmation bias, the blinders, you stop seeing things that don't prove your point. And that's hard because when you keep seeing things that support you, that builds reassurance that you're right. And we actually have to break that cycle through curiosity to go looking for how it could be wrong. But we'll get there.
I'm going to say it now because I don't want to forget this thought. But another interesting motivator in the survival fulfillment cycle of being closed off and curiosity is I don't think it's always so malicious, right? When we go and look for something to confirm, or that selective bias, that cognitive bias, or it's almost like you're trying to find your clan, your people. It's that drive to find your community. And so you create these lines in the sand, these barriers, these boundaries in order to navigate the world around you. And I can hear the audience going, okay, so then what am I supposed to do? And and to me, that's that's where the curiosity really comes in, because it's a misnomer that by finding all the ENTJs, you find a community, because often, especially in the ENTJ meme pages and social media, there ain't a lot of us on those pages because we're often outgoing and doing the thing, right? Like, that's just who we are. And so there isn't a community there. But you know where the community is found? It's found with your family when you're getting curious and deciding what vacation you guys want to go on. It's found in the business when you're brainstorming the next product thing you want to do. And we're going to get into that. But curiosity isn't the opposite of finding those things. It's actually, to me, the progenitor. It's a necessity.
Yeah, the curiosity can lead you in, but you must be mindful with this tool because you can use curiosity to stay the same too. I can be curious to keep looking down the road I've always looked. And it's unconscious. It's not a conscious habit where we say, I ignore that information because it doesn't match my model. It happens, we filter it out. Our brain filters it out. It's kind of the example of when you're looking to buy a new car, you decide you're going to buy that I don't know, a Toyota Corolla and you want a silver one and you start seeing Toyota Corollas that are silver everywhere on the road, it's not like they weren't there before. It's just your brain filtered it out because it wasn't important. And now that you're focused on it, you see it. Same thing with cognitive bias, that closed off feeling. You're not looking for it. So your brain just kicks any information that doesn't match what you believe already out. And so you just see more of what you already see. And that's the skill, is turning that curiosity to purposely look for stuff that's different. And that's when it flows into that quality of possibility, because you're looking for something. Do we have anything else to say on closed off before I move into possibility?
I was just going to, so I'm sure our audience is asking at this point, okay, I hear you, Dave and Jen. I recognize a time in the past week where maybe my blinders were on or I was operating from a different structure. But sometimes when we're in the flow of life and really when we're in that survival cycle, it's hard to recognize that. So how do we recognize what are some clues or hints into, okay, we're in this closed off mindset and I need to lean into my curiosity?
Yeah, that's a fabulous question, Dave. And there are really lots of tools. I mean, you can go back through the play mindset and we could go all the way back to discomfort. When we're closed off, it's often this certain feeling we have. And if anything else comes into that, we can start to get defensive. We can start to fight for our side. We can start to be dismissive of an idea that comes at us. And this normally means that we have closed off to an idea. And, sometimes when something comes into us that we don't like, we can decide to attack the messenger or the circumstance, or go back into that victim state where it's like, I'm going to say you're wrong, or the object is wrong, instead of looking at the idea that is presented.
Right. And so it's this energy of the arms folded, the shoulders raised, the dismissive hand. And it's, as you said, I think we talked about this one or two tools ago, but that blame part of the survival cycle, the to me, this is happening to me, you know? And what happens with that is you get defensive and it leads you to what I would call the antithesis of curiosity, which is certainty.
Hmm.
I know this is what's going to, it's only going to happen this way because that's how it always has happened to me.
Yeah. And I know.
Words. Yeah.
Yeah. I know I'm right. And I'm going to prove to you. Whenever you get that energy of I'm proving, you're probably closed off. That deciding on rightness. And granted, there are times you see those math formulas online. They're like, what's the answer to, and their brackets? And it's, do you remember that you're supposed to add things together and do multiplication and then do what's inside the brackets? And they're supposed to be done in a certain order. And you see that online. And some people have forgotten. They've forgotten that they're supposed to multiply first, you know? And so there is a right answer in that one. But if it's an opinion or a belief, often there's more information you can gather. And it's funny too. I mean, if you get drawn into those things and you want to prove the people wrong, how they don't know how to do math, I mean, really?
Well, and that's a really great point. I'm so glad you brought that up because I was navigating in my own mind sphere how to approach certainty online because it really is insidious in social media. You go and you read the comments section and everyone is certain about their point of view and their opinion. PEMDAS versus someone else's concrete creation of whatever PEMDAS is. And they still get different answers.
And then they get the calculator out, but the people who didn't get the calculator answer say the calculator's wrong, which is funny.
Or they're told the right answer and they still disagree. And here's the thing, if you go and read the comments, it's really easy to know who's in the survival closed off cycle and who's in your quality of possibility. When someone is comment or question is generative, and I'm trying to think of an example, but none is coming to me. But you notice it, you feel it. It's usually got more comments on it, and it's less argumentative and confrontational. It's more generative and curious driven. It inspires. It creates conversation rather than closing it off. Those are those little cues.
Yeah,
And
you can even see it in the math equations where they go, it's this step, then this step. Remember that this comes before that, or here are brackets, so you do what's inside the bracket. There's a lot of explanation in it because they're trying to help.
right. And what I was going to add to that is so beautifully worded because they're not defending. They don't go, this is how you do it. A lot of times it's one comment with 6 lines. Here's your step by step process. Here's how you get to the answer. And that's it. They don't comment, they don't feed the bait, they don't justify it. This was the process.
Yeah, they don't say anybody's stupid.
Right.
That's a big one. If you feel like attacking people, you're probably in the closed off realm.
Right. In a culture, I know we want to make these podcasts evergreen. However, I feel like evergreen is now our culture of divisiveness. We have moved into a survival culture, especially here in the Americas. And I don't see that going away anytime soon. And to me, curiosity is such an invaluable gem. It really is the diamond in this rough on any side. Because the ability to have curiosity drive your questioning and not curiosity, like you were talking about earlier, to lead to a certain point, but genuine curiosity to discover connection and to be in possibility. That's what's going to create the connection we're all looking for at this point.
Oh, yeah. It'll be the shift of
Yeah.
our society back to something that, gosh, I want back.
Like I said, I debated bringing it up, but it is this is just so succinct of what we kind of see in our culture right now. I think it's important to address. But
Kind of in the world. Like everything's just a little topsy turvy and nobody agrees. And our conversations have got very small on what we can talk about without getting in a fight. And so I think it's a good thing to consider right now.
the larger our worlds become, the smaller it's become because we've created the algorithmic echo chambers. And that's that confirmation bias we talked about earlier. So really leaning into possibility where we're moving next and through that tool of curiosity is going to be paramount for us for a humanity's shift. If we really believe in our tagline of celebrating our humanity, that's how we make that shift. So
Yeah.
what is that possibility quality?
Yeah. So it is a quality. You can practice, you can watch for it, but it's something that develops over time through practicing that open ended curiosity. But what it looks like is this expansion of self. Remember, it's a quality. So there's openness to new experiences. Not being good at things is okay. There isn't a right or wrong. You can see a perspective that somebody else has, and you have that novelty of life. You want newness. You want to see what might show up that you didn't see before. You embrace challenges. You're looking to fail, not because failure is like your goal, but you just want to try stuff. You want to do new things. You want to meet new people. You're willing to say hi in a grocery store because who knows who you're going to meet, and it could be good.
There's a quality here too that comes up of I might push back actually. I think sometimes failing to fail intentionally is okay
Sure.
because you don't know, right? If everything you always do works out, then there's nothing ever challenging you to grow. Part of growth is failure. And I think for me, possibility isn't fearing the failure or even avoiding the failure. Possibility is recognizing failure as part of the process and not reacting, but responding to it, being able to be detached from what that failure is. One of my hows with my curiosity is win or learn, never lose. And it's not that I never lose or don't have failures. It's where's my mindset? Did I succeed in what I wanted to do, or did I learn in what I wanted to do?
And I do like the way you posted that, just that we are seeking out things that there's a really high chance that you're going to fail out. You know, go do a new sport, go take a dance class if you've never taken a dance class, and you're going to have that experience where, yeah, the body doesn't do it. Today in my martial arts class, all we had to do was push on one another. So one person pushed the other person's shoulder, and then there was a step that you had to take. And one way I could do it, they'd push on my shoulder and I'd turn around. And then the other way, they push on my shoulder and my whole body would just freeze in place. Like nothing happened because my brain short circuited. It just stopped working for a second. And I stood there, I'm like, what do my feet need to do? Hold on a second. Oh, this motion. But everything just failed. It just went, yeah, it's not happening. My body doesn't know how to turn that way. And it wasn't hard. It was stepping away. All it was. But it was something my body hadn't practiced. I failed over and over and over. And then it got better. But it was an expected failure.
So, growth mindset is a pretty big buzzword these days. And it's something that I feel is growing in mainstream media and culture and psychological work. So, Carol Dweck is the person that invented growth mindset. And one of the things that I've learned recently is that true to human nature, we've sort of superficialized what her research and work actually showed. And I think this is really important here because one of the overlooked messages of what she was sharing with growth mindset is the mentality of yet. I haven't done this yet. I haven't mastered this yet. I haven't learned this new skill yet. It's the idea of effort rather than performance and rather than success. And possibility is seen through effort and action, not through mental gymnastics and theory. And we're hitting on that because curiosity does have that crap with it of you can sit in your head all day in a dark room staring at a wall and be quote unquote curious, but that's not really curiosity. That's not possibility. Possibility is living and breathing and action and choice and effort and rolling up your sleeves and getting messy and not getting it right. And to my type ones and my type A's listening out there, it's about consistency, not perfection.
And I'd like to add to that because you're bringing up a really good point. This isn't potential. This isn't like what could happen if I do this string. It's possibility. It's being open for something new, something that hasn't happened. It's not the potential of something to happen if you continue on like a goal where I'll lose weight if I eat right and exercise and da 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 da. This is if I eat right and exercise and get strong, what else might I be able to do? What else just could come up and show up for me? I've had times just with my physical health where I've gotten in really good shape. And then out of the blue, I'm messing around and my body does something it didn't do before. Like I could do a different like handstand, or I could do this weird push up that I saw some other guy do and I've never tried it before. Or I'm rock climbing and I've got the move where my body would have never done it. And I didn't know that that wasn't a goal. That wasn't an outcome. It's just something juicy that happened from the consistency. And then I was open to the possibility of trying it. But if I hadn't been open, like, oh, my body doesn't do that, even with all the exercise and all the building, it's like, no, I've been practicing these sets of exercises. So that's what I can do. It's like, no, the bodies can now do new things. I don't know if this is like making sense, but there's really just this, wow.
I completely agree. And I think I have an example to illustrate at least what's coming up for me as you say this. Maybe that's not exactly the tangent or the path that you were on. However,
Let's explore the possibility.
yeah. So business guy, let's pretend that you want to open up a business to sell candles and you spend your quote unquote curiosity watching 1,600 YouTube videos and following a couple people on TikTok that already do what you want to do. And maybe you dress that up as learning and you're building skills, and maybe there is some merit to that. But the possibility, the potential comes from the effort. The minute you are in possibility isn't when you are sitting wondering, projecting, goal setting. The minute possibility comes in is when you are actually in the doing, in the being of it. When you create the page for your new candle business, when you reach out to your first set of customers, when you go and figure out where your product is coming from, when you make your first product, when you ship your first product and you realize that, okay, I shipped my first candle and it showed up in 1,000 pieces because I forgot to put peanuts in the box, or I didn't wrap it the right way, or I sent the wrong scent. All of those experiences are what create the possibility. And that can't come from just future casting and from being in that limited mindset. And that's why it's in fulfillment. And curiosity is the essence, I guess, of getting to that. It's, oh, all right, this thing happened. How do I want to handle it? It's, I got a complaint from a customer because their candle showed up in a million pieces. How do I want to handle that? What can I do to win this customer and grow my business from this experience? That is full of possibility. And
Yeah.
it's directed around the experience of what you are in. That's what
Yeah.
comes for me when you were talking about that potential.
Yeah. Yeah. Something new shows up. This is how you know if you're in the closed off, because you will see the same things when you're closed off, and you will reinforce the same story. When you start to feel possibility becoming a part of you, lots of new things, new interesting things show up in your world. Stuff that you couldn't have thought of beforehand. They just show up, and they're often good. Even in a failure, something interesting and life affirming show up. You talk to somebody in the store, even if they're grumbly, something comes out of it that's useful or nice, or you meet another person who supports you. And these things only happen because you take the action, that you try, that you're out there, that you have a quality in yourself, that the things that you don't know could be good, could be better, could be fun.
And sometimes they just suck. I mean, quite honestly, not every time that you have a failure means that something good is going to happen from it. But don't let the fear and discomfort of that possibility prevent you from moving into your fulfillment cycle and into being in possibility and to developing possibility. Because as we have talked about in this podcast, when you are in your fulfillment, it ripples.
Right.
So there's a generative effect.
And it is the frame, because when you're in possibility, you project out that it could go well. And so you're looking and exploring. If you look at people who are in the survival cycle, good things do come around, but they are still anxious about all the bad things that could happen. And so they're closed and they don't want to try. And sometimes something good happens, but they're still focused on what could go wrong. And it's just a flip of the switch when you're in possibility. Things don't always go right. Sometimes, as Dave said, they suck, but that's not where your focus is. You're like, yeah, that one sucked. Let's go see what happens this time. Let's iterate.
Right. It goes back to those levels of consciousness. When that thing happens, are you framing it as that happened to me? Or are you framing it as what can I do with that as me, by me, through me? Taking the candle example with your new candle shop that apparently our audience is running.
Love your candle shop, by the way.
Yeah, thank you guys. So when that broken candle shows up to you and you get that customer complaint, you could be like, "Oh my gosh, this is why I didn't want to open the business. I'm screwing up already. I made a mistake," and you just spiral, right? You force yourself and reinforce that survival cycle. Or, oh, all right, that didn't work how I wanted. Maybe I need to resend them a couple candles, send an apology. Here's a coupon for trying this out again. And now every time you show up to the shipping place, you're more confident because now you know to package it better. And as you start creating a pattern where those things work, it builds confidence. And not only confidence, you become resilient to the issues that do happen when they don't go your way, which is why I brought up that sometimes shit happens, right? And so it's this idea of you become self efficient. You learn to trust yourself. And for someone that values curiosity, self trust is huge. There's a level of vulnerability that happens with this that I think gets dressed over because everyone wants to be curious and inquisitive and insightful and have the quote unquote right things to say. And that's still survive. That's still the performance of the survival mindset. That's still that closed offness because you are creating the structure that this is what has to happen in order for me to feel safe, seen, heard, to trust myself. When in reality, life is going to happen because life is life. And so the idea is that as you lean into curiosity, you are building something deeper. And that's why we say that possibility is a quality. It's something that comes out of you as you build around the things that are happening around you and you shift the mindset from the blame into possibility.
All right. So we've got the idea of what possibility, yeah, what possibility feels like, what the energy is of it. But now we got the tool. Now we got curiosity. Dave, how do we use this tool effectively? What are the pitfalls? What is the good?
All right. So I hit on this just a little bit earlier, but curiosity is really, for me, it's an embodiment of wonder. It's the idea of, let me back up. I was not always good with my value of curiosity. Curiosity, even though I value it and I feel fulfilled and aligned when I am in my curiosity, it is still something I had to learn to develop. And it's because curiosity is tricky. When you're having a conversation with somebody and you ask them a question, if you're trying to lead them to an answer, that's not really curiosity. That's leading them to an answer. It's a strategy and a structure to guide the conversation. True curiosity is openness and a willingness to be vulnerable regardless of the outcome. And one of the ways that I think that this comes up the most is in brainstorming sessions, both the good and the bad examples of curiosity. When you're brainstorming, let's say it's with yourself and you go, oh, I want to run my candle business and these are all the candles I want to do. And then that inner critic starts in your head of, well, 10 other people own a business and 5 other people have that scent or whatever tapes start playing through your head. That's not curiosity, but curiosity is the antidote to get through that. And so it becomes this what if mentality. What if I did this? What if I embraced this idea? What if we tried this thing? What if we, here's a great example. This podcast series is a long standing exercise for Jen and I of curiosity because as we have been recording and sharing our ideas, we started going, what if? What else can we share? What else is around? And what we realized is that we could share this tool. But if we were closed off and only decided that our podcast was going to be a certain way, I don't know that we would have leaned into the, quite honestly, again, vulnerability of trying this. And maybe this series will work, maybe it won't, but that's not the point. The point is that we decided to come from our sense of fulfillment and trust in a process that Jen built and a tool that we believe works and a tool that we have worked with ourselves. And we want to share that. And that's curiosity. And that's why I said earlier, curiosity is generative, it's community building. It is a way to share and to grow and to generate. That's the energy of curiosity. If you are feeling that light, fuzzy tingle, like that's your curiosity sparking up through you. And that's what you want to follow. And it's scary. It can be, because oftentimes you have to move through discomfort in order to get there. But the gift is just so worth it.
Yeah. And curiosity, when you're in that higher version of it, where you're not leading somebody down the path you want them to go, if you have a curious question, then their answer can surprise and delight you. Whereas if you have a path you want them to go down, if they don't go that way, then you're frustrated and you try to maneuver your questions to guide again. And so if you're in enjoyment of where something is going, regardless of where it goes, that's real curiosity. That's being open. We always go back to diet and that kind of thing because it's concrete, it's grounded. And if you try a diet for, say, a month and you're curious, you're not there to lose just to lose weight. You're actually, I'm curious, I'm going to try a diet, but the goal is to lose weight and have it work. Or is it curious, eating this way for a month, what do I notice about myself beyond the goal? Do I have more energy? Am I tired right after eating? Does it support my brain function? Do I feel more alert? These are the things that would be curious. Or I ate that and I wanted to go take a nap, but I ate this and that made me want to go out and do the garden. And that's where curiosity brings possibility. What if I eat more of that? You know, and maybe eat more and that's too much and it actually sends you the wrong direction. So, and then you're like, okay, moderation, moderation. That's the true curiosity. Because if you think the energy builder will, if you do more of it, it'll make it better, then you've gotten into that creation of curiosity. I'm going to do this because it's right.
Yeah, curiosity is more about the effort and not the outcome.
What will come from that effort?
Yeah.
What crazy thing will come out of this effort, good, bad, or indifferent?
And being willing to continue to lean into curiosity regardless of what the outcome is.
Yeah.
The way that I always think about it for me is curiosity is it's kind of like a fire. And so when you have a fire outside, there's a couple elements that you need, and one is tinder, so like an idea, but you also need air. You know, if you light a fire in the vacuum of space outside of Star Wars, the fire is going to die because there's no oxygen. You need the air in order for the fire to breathe. Too much air, right? And the fire goes crazy. Not enough air and the fire gets smoldered. And so the idea is that that air, that breath that you breathe into your curiosity is a balanced approach to life. And so if we dress up curiosity as the confirmation bias and the closed off, like we talked about, that's kind of where you've added too much tinder, too much structure, too much smoldering of your flame, of your fire. But if you don't have enough structure, if you don't have enough tinder, in other words, if you are not leaning into your growth mindset, then it's never going to catch. And it's, again, that closed off idea. And so it's this balancing act that comes from the other tools in the play mindset. And it's this ability to navigate it and adapt as situations arise. And one of the reasons for that is your curiosity is meant to be a guide. It's not meant to be the answer. And I think we've hit on that with the effort versus the outcome.
That's just such a potent way to put it, though. It's the guide, it's not the answer.
Yeah. It's the lantern in the dark, right? It's yeah, it's your beacon. And so I brought up brainstorming, and I just want to re-emphasize that point, and then I feel like I've said my piece on curiosity. Brainstorming often gets misconstrued as, let's try this idea. No, that won't work because of X, Y, and Z. And that's not curiosity. Curiosity is the one time where I abandon discernment in the process of imagination and generation, and I get as crazy and wild as possible. But that's because I value it. And it's something that I know is generative for me. And so I don't want to judge what comes up with my curiosity, because oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, if I am too much in my discernment and judgment with my curiosity, then I'm allowing past pattern structures, behaviors, whatever, to influence my curiosity. And then I'm not being open. And so it's a really nuanced thing. And it's a play. And that's it tickles me that it's part of this, because it really is a play. And I think curiosity can be such a gift for our audience, because it allows the opportunity to just have fun. Let go of the seriousness a bit. Let go of it has to be done this way, in lieu of how else can I do this? Because possibility is where you find your answers.
This makes me think of Walt Disney. And I don't remember what book I read it in, but it was talking about Walt Disney's process for building new things. Yeah. And so he would have three different chairs, I believe. And the first chair was the dreamer. Anything he could come up with, that was what he would focus on. And just anything, the wildest, like Pirates of the Caribbean. I want to build a ride where there are pirates all around and you're floating down a river and blah blah. I mean, that's insane. And then he went to the next chair, and the next chair was the critic. But the critic wasn't saying that won't work. The critic is saying, if we do this, what could go wrong? Oh, well, if we have these animatronic characters with water that's all steamy, then it could set some of the electronics on fire or make them rust, or that could be a problem. And then he would go to his third place, if I remember correctly. And that was, how do we make it work? So the critic's like, this is what could go wrong. And then the other one is like, how do we fix that? Do you remember it that way? I remember there were three chairs, but nobody said no. None of these chairs said it won't work or no.
Yeah, that's vaguely the story I remember. And there's a quote. I feel like I want to share that quote. Jen, just so the audience is knowing, Jen's like, yeah, do it.
Do it. Yeah, I'm nodding my head vigorously.
So this is a quote from Walt Disney that mentions curiosity, and I think and succinctly ties this entire podcast together with what Jen just shared, and gives a openness to where it can lead you. So here's the quote. So around here, however, we don't look backwards for very long. We keep moving forward, opening up new doors and doing new things, because we are curious. And curiosity keeps leading us down new paths.
Perfect.
Here's my challenge for the audience. How can you use curiosity to open up a new path for you this week? What is one new path that you can avail to yourself through the tool of curiosity? And let us know what you find.
The possibilities abound.
Love it. So make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening from. Drop us a like or a comment. Let us know how you did on the challenge. Share us out with your friends and family who might be curious about our podcast.
Yeah. And until next time,
See ya.